So what we'll do is, what I want to do is talk about understanding your value proposition. Okay, and so we'll talk about business models as part of that, and we'll talk about thinking of your project as a business opportunity. Okay, so let's think about each of your projects, and what do you think it means for me to say value proposition? Sometimes we call it customer value proposition, CVP, right? So what do you think customer value proposition means? So if your project had a customer value proposition, what does it mean? What does it mean that you have a customer value proposition?
Like the customer requirements or needs?
Yeah, could be. It's that, but it's a little bit more than that, right? I mean, you just think of the terms. You are proposing, you're putting forth a proposition that you're going to deliver value to your customers. Okay? So, with your project, remind me again what your project is. I'm sorry. Classroom design, right? Okay. So in classroom design, who are your customers? Professors, students, right? And if we're going to think about your project in terms of a business, you might be thinking beyond just St. Ambrose students, right? So it'd be something that you would do for maybe other universities, right? For those professors or those students. So a customer value proposition is basically stating how do you deliver the value. So what value do professors and students get from your project? What would you say? How would you put that into a one sentence? Students and okay, which is what?
Efficient.
Efficient? Okay. Okay, but I think it could be more than that, right? Right? Am I looking for efficiency in the design? Yes, but I'm also looking for more than that, right? I'm looking for, so what would you say? What else? Okay, you're designing an effective learning environment, which is something that, so stated that way, that serves both the customer of the faculty and of the students, right? Okay, I like that. I like that. How about you guys for Hilltop? What would your customer value proposition be? Who's your customers? Students, primarily, right?
Anyone who uses the path.
And what?
Anyone who uses the path.
Anyone who uses the path, right? Okay. So what would be the value that you're offering to those students?
Guidance, maybe math. Yeah.
Guidance in what way? What kind of guidance do they need?
Like highlighting the good places to visit.
Okay. Right, and that's something that we follow Yelp and all these other things to find out what are the best places to go to, and what's the best way to get there, right? So you're doing a couple of things, right? You are helping provide guidance for what the safe, efficient, and go-to places, right? So maybe does that make sense, or?
Yes.
It looks like you want to add something more. What else do you say?
Advertising but
Okay.
we have to make sure that safety and other things
Yeah.
and weather are not like obstacles to the customers.
Yeah, and so actually you've got sort of secondary customers too, which is, I suppose, the businesses in the Hilltop too, right? So they will be getting a benefit of that, even as you focus on the students, right? And I think that's where your focus probably lies, right? And that's who you're really speaking to, but benefits should accrue to Hilltop businesses as well, right? How about soccer goals? Who's going to benefit? Who are your customers? Recreation center, meaning who? The Department of Recreation will benefit in what? And so, what value are you providing to them?
Who gonna use it there? Players, could be coach.
Okay, so maybe it's making ease of use of their equipment so that they can easily store it, and so that maybe more people will use it then, right? Because the recreation center itself probably wants to make sure that people are using the facility, and so by creating these soccer goals that fit in there easily and can be easily taken out, people are using it for indoor soccer, right? So there you go. There's your value proposition. How about your guys' the fetch thing, right? So have you decided on a title yet for this? Is it not really? Dog throwing device? No, I don't know. But fetch, yeah. Fetcher. So who's your customers?
A person with spinal disability.
Okay, so
like the wallet one.
Okay, so spinal disability, and what value are you delivering to them?
The independence to actually play fetch with their dog instead of have someone else like go to the ball for them.
Oh, I like that. You're looking at independence. That's a really cool thing. So it's not just that they can play with a dog. You've identified the idea that independence is important. Okay, guys, let's. I'm trying to find out what everybody is doing here with each of their projects and how it's different but similar in each of these things. So, who is your customer?
I'd say pretty much anybody. Indoor with the wooden floors.
Well,
Is their main customer starting off with Romo?
yeah. I mean, it could. Yeah. So you're looking even beyond, right? But so maybe to start with, you're talking about people who are using the chairs, right? So sitters, I suppose. So maybe it's students. Although really, you're probably thinking that you're also serving the faculty, the maintenance, and whatnot as well. And so maybe it's universities, I suppose you could even say. So what value are you delivering?
I think peace of mind that you don't have to worry about their floors getting all screwed up.
I like that idea. Peace of mind. Hey, you are creating something that I don't have to worry about, right? You've probably been at somebody's party where, you need a coaster for that, right? To put your drink down. You're getting rid of that type of worry, right? So I like that. So independence, peace of mind. How else would you say? Saving. Oh, saving money. So it's a cost savings too, right? Because instead of having to spend all this money, buffing the floors and whatnot, or having to repair things, there's a cost savings too. Good. So we're going to be kind of talking about that. So keep that in mind about your customers and your customer value propositions. Okay. So if I wanted to make it rain, and maybe actually I might have done, in this classroom right now, how could this be accomplished? So you guys have been really creative here, right? In your projects and whatnot. What kinds of things could you think of to make it rain in this room? Sprinkler system? Well, so I pull the fire, it's not a fire alarm, but do we have a sprinkler system? Uh-oh. Please don't start any fires in here. Yeah, so we don't have a sprinkler system. How could you make it rain in here? I guess you could install one, right? It'd take a little bit of time. What's that?
Take your water bottle.
Take your water bottle. Okay, and then okay, I like that. What else could you do? Any other ideas? How to make it rain? What's that? Bring in a hose and kind of maybe hook it up to the bathroom or something, and yeah. What else could you do? Well, let me ask you to do something with me. Okay, I want us to create a circle. So I'm going to sit at this chair, but I want you to move your chairs around and create a circle for this class with our chairs, okay? So we can probably, so you need somebody on your left and somebody on your right. So let's see how long it takes for us to make a circle. You guys all know what a circle looks like? Let's make one. There we go. Maybe we'll pull in a little bit. Maybe I'll move on over here. You got a table in the way, so that's okay. Is there somebody on your left and somebody on your right? That's good. Okay. So what I'm going to ask you to do is look to the person to your right. Okay. So that's the person that I want you to be paying attention to. So I'm going to do some movement here. And so you will look to me and you'll start doing the same movement. And you start doing it when he starts doing it. And you start doing it when he starts doing it. And you start doing this. So for instance, if I start doing a movement, I don't want Peyton to start doing the movement when I do it. I want you to do it when Omar is doing it. Okay? Does that make sense? Okay. And I want you to keep doing it until Omar changes what he's doing, right? So, okay. And so the same for each of you. Whoever is to your right, you will do it then. Okay? So we'll basically be creating a wave, if you will. Does that make sense? All right. Wait to do it till you look to Warren. Yep. Okay, so we just created a rainstorm, a sound rainstorm. Okay, does that make sense? All right, let's go back to our seats and let's talk about, well, what is that? What the heck is this all about? So we oftentimes, when we're problem solving, we have different frames of reference that we come to the table at, right? We're thinking about water, and we're thinking how are ways of getting water in here, but there's other ways of thinking of a rainstorm. From the other class, somebody said, I'd take a wad of ones and do a storm of dollar bills. And this is using sound as a way of problem solving here and seeing what kinds of opportunity there is. Also, you were kind of wondering, why are we getting in this circle? Why are we having to move our chairs around? So there's a lot of uncertainty at first, but as we started to do this, as we started to do the action, the uncertainty diminished, didn't it? It was like, okay, yeah, I understand what we're doing here. And maybe you weren't thinking, oh, this is a rainstorm, but as soon as I said it, you're probably like, oh, yeah, okay, that makes some sense here. And then the final thing is sometimes when we're talking about entrepreneurship and social entrepreneurship, the idea of action is very important. So doing something, and that's why these projects that you guys are doing requires action, right? It's going out and talking to people. It's you know, looking at designing things, feeling what works best, and actually doing something, making something, and the action part of it is something that stimulates us thinking about how best to solve problems, and we start to see all the different emotions and different aspects of what need to be solved as we're doing that. And so so that's an important thing to keep in mind as we are going through this process, trying to solve this customer value proposition idea. Okay, so I don't know if I've done this in class here before, but so sometimes I'll do this opportunity walk. We'll go outside or whatever. Oh, it's a little bit chilly now, I think, but let's do a classroom opportunity walk. Okay? So what I want you to do is look at everything in this room, and I want you to think about the business opportunities that people have created that exist just on what we're wearing, on what you see. And I want you to maybe shout out a couple of things. So, yeah. Everything. So name some, right? You've got...
Someone made $1 million talk about every single item in this room.
Yeah, every single, right? I mean, we got Vizio TV, we've got Epson with the thing, and then the component parts, right? So there's companies with the component parts. You've got Han with the chairs and the and the vents here. We've got Mitsubishi, and here Mitsubishi thermostat that doesn't work. And I mean, what else? Painting, flooring, you know, the materials of it, and the raw materials. You can go back and think, man, and we got water bottles, right? And the water, computers, we had Apple, and so many things. I mean, so we're talking dozens, we're talking hundreds, probably thousands of opportunities that have been identified and developed into customer value propositions that we are wearing every day, that we walk through, that we see all the time. It's actually kind of a bit overwhelming to be thinking about that. Wow, oh my gosh, this is kind of weird that we have, you know, created all of this, right? And so that's what you guys are doing with your projects as well. You guys are identifying these opportunities and turning it into something, or solving the problem. But I also want you to be thinking about your value proposition, and I want you to be thinking about this in terms of, what if you were to turn this into a business opportunity? What would that be? What could we do to do that? And that's what today is about, is thinking through some of these things. So I asked you about each of your value propositions for your projects, and we'll talk some more about that. Here's an example of one, right? This is a car parking device for a ramp. Kind of neat. It's kind of basically turns a ramp into what, you know, like a candy bar dispenser or something. And you would do that. What would be the value proposition of this? This is maybe to save money for people. Maybe it's easier to get your car. You don't have to worry about parking it and somebody driving it. You just stick it on this thing and it goes up there, and then when you retrieve your car, it just comes down. Kind of an interesting concept there. And so I think a lot of times when we think about our customer value proposition, I think it's important that we think about, how does it improve people's lives? And I think each one of yours does something to improve people's lives in some way, right? So even for-profit businesses, they are doing this. Starbucks, their mission to inspire and nurture the human spirit, one person, one cup, in one neighborhood at a time. So even they are thinking about this. Patagonia, of course, they don't want you to buy their clothes and equipment unless you're going to use it, and they're big on the environment. Even Walmart, save money, live better. They've changed how they sell things. So they used to sell, I don't know if your family's bought a TV from Walmart before, but they used to have really, really cheap TVs, and they would probably break down in just a couple months afterwards. So it was kind of leading to an environmental disaster, basically. So they've decided to up their level of quality in those kinds of things, in all of the things that they try to sell, so that we can live better, in other words. So it's not just save money so that you can live better. They're trying to actually find ways for people to live better, and that's why they integrate, different healthcare and other kinds of things into their stores as well now. And then Life is Good. You've probably seen some of these T-shirts or mugs or tire covers on the back of a Jeep or something like that. And the idea is to make you smile and to think good thoughts, things like that. So what I want to do is show you a short little video from Guy Kawasaki. He's a kind of a business guru now. He's one of the earliest Apple employees, and so he's giving a little entrepreneurship talk here, and he's talking about how what's important when you're thinking of a business opportunity, right? What are the important aspects of a business opportunity? And he's saying it's not just the idea of making money. It's something more than that. So when you're thinking about your project as a business opportunity, I think you guys are already on the right track. So let's play. Okay, so I think all of you are probably in this increased the quality of life category, probably, right? Anybody, you might think that your project is righting a wrong. Well, let's see, Hilltop, righting a wrong. Probably, maybe the increasing quality of life, right? Preventing the end of something good. In a way, you're trying to preserve something from the hilltop, I guess, but I think you're more trying to rejuvenate it, so you're probably in the increasing quality of life idea. But basically, you guys are all doing something about making meaning, and that's what he says the idea of the business opportunity should start. It shouldn't be, how can I make a quick buck? He says if you've got some good meaning, you've got some good idea, basically a good customer value proposition, then you can probably make money with that. Okay, so we're going to talk about, to understand better this idea of business opportunity, we're going to look at the idea of a business model. And so a business model is basically just a way of thinking about how you might create value and how you might deliver that value. Okay, and we'll end up talking about a particular tool that we can use to actually do this. Okay, so there's kind of four parts of this, the idea of the business model: the offering of the product or service of what it is, who you are offering this to, the customer, what kind of infrastructure you use to develop this, and then how do you actually make the money and make it sustainable, right? So each of these one at a time. The offering, this is where you're looking at identifying who this is going to go toward, what kinds of resources you need, whether or not you're offering this as a service or a product, right? So some of you actually have maybe a product, right? You guys with the chairs, you probably have a product that you could have, but you could still think of it as a service, right? You could be, if you're thinking of it as a business opportunity, you might be servicing other universities to protect their chairs. And so it could be considered as a service because you're using somebody else's product really, right? You're not necessarily creating your own. So it could be more of a service. You guys with the Hilltop probably thinking of, probably it's a, so if you were going to do this as a business opportunity, you'd be probably thinking about how you would consult with other Main Street programs or universities to help create their campus town better. You might think of it as kind of a consulting type of business as well. Or if you deliver, or if you're creating this flyer or this map, maybe there is a product that you end up selling and say, hey, we will create this. We'll create this map for you, and so maybe it is a product that you. The customer, looking at who specifically is going to benefit from this. What are the different segments, and how do you actually intend to reach those segments? How do you intend to create relationships with that customer? So in your case, it would be going to other universities and finding another Scott Hunting Club or something like that, right? Or for you guys, it would be talking to other universities who would be looking at maybe putting up a new building or redesigning their classrooms. So you could probably talk to some school administrators, right? For you guys, again, it would probably be against school administrators. Or you could develop it for offices and other things, right? So you've got a variety of ways to go. Start in the school setting and then move to other segments, right? The infrastructure here includes all these different component parts here. Suppliers of your product that you use, maybe the technology that you use in designing the classrooms, right? The people that you would need to talk to get information about your system. What music is that? And then the facilities that you would need to help deliver this as well. And then finally, the financial viability, looking at the revenue side of things, the cost side of things, and then the why. Why is it that somebody would hire your product or service? So it's not just about cost and revenue, it's also about, in order for this to be viable, people need to want to have your product or service. Product or service. Okay, so to the customer value proposition, it's the most important aspect of this business model. You want to think about your customer value proposition in terms of, are customers better off with your proposition than somebody else's, right? Because you want to win in the marketplace, so you need to offer something that's better than the alternatives out there. Thank you. And you want it to be measurable. And you guys have all created things that are measurable about your products that you're testing and everything like that. And it needs to be something that can last over time. It's sustainable in that sense, lasting over time. And also, with the business model, you're looking at basically the job to be done idea, right? We talked about understanding customer needs in terms of the job to be done, and you've already gone through and looked at customer needs and their goals and how you might resolve them. And hopefully, when you are done with this, you've actually resolved these maybe in a way that might not necessarily be expected, right? All right, so you guys have also dealt with the problems that the customers have, your customers have given you, and I wonder which of these 4 problems your customers have that you're actually solving, right? So for the Hilltop, which of these? So we've got lack of time, so a time element. Do any of you have a time? Yours isn't. Yours might be a lack of money that you're solving, right? Because you're solving the idea of not having to spend extra money on all these scuff marks and whatnot, right? Lack of time might be the soccer goals, right? So that people can get things and actually get to them soon. Lack of skills would be, anybody in lack of skills? What would Hilltop be? What would you be solving, you think? Maybe it's lack of access. It's not, you're actually not, students aren't even thinking that there is anything in the Hilltop, right? And so you're going to help them access all of those things that the Hilltop can offer, right? So here are some examples of what companies have done for each of these 4 customer needs. So we talked about CVS and their Minute Clinic, right? You guys gone to the emergency room before and you've sat there forever and ever, right? The idea of the Minute Clinic is that you get your service right away. IKEA, they're basically designing something that's kind of neat and good enough in terms of furniture, but at a very affordable price. Intuit with QuickBooks and Quicken allow you to do things that accountants really maybe were only able to do. Company like 23andMe, DNA testing, gives you access to that whole database of DNA that then you can find out either ancestry or if you have any genetic issues at all. So you can think of your customer value proposition in terms of these, addressing these 4 customer problems, and that's what you guys have been spending most of your time doing. There's also 3 different types of value propositions, so some are better than others. So a good one will focus on the product and all the benefits that it gives. But a better one actually focuses on how what you do is better than anybody else's solution. Okay, so for instance, there are consulting companies that deal with designing of classrooms, right? And so if you're focusing on, well, we do this design process, that could be good, but maybe better is saying how yours actually is better than somebody else's. Maybe it's because you actually, maybe there's some innovative designs that you actually are incorporating that nobody else is. But best is if you can create something that resonates, some kind of focus that resonates. So you are really focused on the customer, and so in particular with your design, classroom design, maybe it's that you can actually, you actually have this design process of going in and really talking with the customers, and you actually try out the chairs and all that, and that would be something that then you could say, hey, your value proposition is the best here. Okay, does that make sense? All right. Okay, so now let's move on to talk about a tool that you can use for the business model. Okay, this is called the business model canvas. So when you think of a canvas, so why do you think we would call it a canvas? A canvas is what? Something that you paint on, right? It's something that you can visualize, something that you can see. And so the business model canvas takes those 4 ideas that we just talked about, puts it into 9 components, and says, hey, this is how you can best see all these interconnecting things that then delivers this customer value proposition. Okay? So here's an example of a business model canvas. This is for a t-shirt company. Okay? So let's look at this from a value proposition side. Their t-shirt company says, we want to deliver trendy t-shirts for kids with eco-friendly material with original designs by new artists. Well, that sounds interesting. That wouldn't be for everybody, right? So they're looking at certain customer segments, such as fashion-conscious parents who are actually making the purchase, and maybe trendy junior high and high school kids. Okay, so how are they delivering it? Through the internet. You're going to have a store, and then through word of mouth. So those would be the channels that they're delivering it. They create customer relationships by giving in-store advice. Right? That's one of the reasons why Apple has created an Apple Store, right? So that they can give advice and things like that and control some of that happens within their store. Social media as well to develop those relationships. On this side, some of the key activities that they're going to do are managing that stock of inventory. They're going to make sure they focus on selling and then actually designing these things. What they're not going to do, though, is actually make the t-shirt. So the outsourcing, so key partners, sometimes we're looking at who you might be outsourcing to. So t-shirt suppliers, so they're not going to make the actual shirt itself. And they're not going to hire designers. They're actually just going to select the design. So they won't have a design team. They'll have people who select the designs that their network of artists actually create. So some of the resources means they need to have a specific location for their store. They need to pay the workers to sell this. They need to have a network of artists. And then they'll have some kind of inventory on hand, right? So how do they make money? On the revenue side of things, right? How you make the actual money, it'll be store sales and online sales. And then the other financial aspect you need to focus on is the costs, right? So who do they have to pay? Employees. They have to rent the store. They have to pay for sales and marketing. You know, they have to decide how much they're going to pay. So for instance, like a company like Nike, paying LeBron James lots of money. So are they going to find somebody, maybe, I don't know, a skateboarder to promote their designs, or who? Who are the artists that they're going to pay for, and then the actual t-shirts themselves. You know, when you're talking about eco-friendly material, you'll have to find that market of what those organic clothing would be, right? So yeah, so this is the financial part. The revenue minus costs equals what? Profits, right? Yeah. So that's this. So this is so that's why these are both important. How are you creating this value? How are you delivering it by making sure that the costs of everything that you're doing is less? Okay. So this business model canvas is used by companies. They're not just startups. These are used by other companies to see how these things work together. Southwest is a good example of how they look at things that on one side affect the other. So for instance, you can see it doesn't make sense to have this value proposition if you're not focusing on the right customers, right? And it doesn't make sense to have partners of artists and designers if you're not delivering it in some way to the customer value proposition, right? So all of these interrelate, and the more closely tied everything is, the better your organization is going to perform, and the more money you're going to make, and the more costs you're going to save. So for instance, with Southwest Airlines, right, their goal is to be the low-cost airline, right? That's their customer value proposition. So some of the things that they need to do to make that happen versus their competitors. So let's take United and Delta, right? They have a hub and spoke model, right? So when you fly in Delta, you're always going to be flying through Atlanta or through Detroit, right? With United, you're always flying through the hub of Chicago, right? So So they've invested heavily in these different areas and whatnot. Southwest has decided, okay, we're going to do point to point. And so then we're going to go to maybe not as known airports. We're going to have one model of airplane. Now they've expanded now to a broader fleet as they've gone on, but it used to be that they'd have just 737s. So how does that help them save money to have just 737s? They want to be a low-cost airline. How does having just one type of airplane? Yeah, Peyton.
You don't need as many mechanics because every mechanic knows the flight line.
Yeah. So you've got you only have to have mechanics trained in one thing. So then, when something breaks down, so we've all had delays on an airplane, right? And they say, oh, it's a mechanical failure. And sometimes the delay is just that the mechanic that can fix it is not there. And they have to either drive in or they have to fly in. And then you're just waiting that whole time. Where if you've got just one thing, any of your mechanics can fix it. That also means any of your pilots can fly it too, because some pilots aren't trained on certain things. So now, they try to have 5 turnarounds per day on any particular flight. So now you're getting in, the delay is really costly for them. So they try to eliminate those delays so that they can use that plane as much as possible. And that's how they've been able to make the money and then save the money at the same time. And it all works together, doesn't it? All works together with that customer value proposition. Here's another example, a really simple one, right? Making a lemonade stand, right? How many of you have ever made a lemonade stand, right? Something like that. Did you ever sell anything like that? Oh, I used to sell cookies and lemonade or something. Well, here's the value proposition, right? You're going to make cold, tasty, natural lemonade on the go. So you're making it out of lemons, I suppose. So you need to have the press and whatnot. Customers, they decided, it's going to be park visitors. Okay, so they're going to set it up in a park. Okay, so how are you going to get to the customers? Through your booth that you set up, but they're also going to make a online site. Interesting. It's going to be mainly personal relationship, right? So you want to, as people go by, you say, I'm going to buy a little lemonade from you, right? So some of the key activities is the actual making of the lemonade, marketing of it to people, and then the actual selling and taking the money. Key resources would be the ingredients that you use, the people that you need to sell it, and then the booth itself, right? Key partners are the municipalities giving you access to the location, right? The money-making side of things, you're making it from the sales and then from tips that people might say, aren't you cute? I'll give you extra money, right? And then the cost structure would be how much it costs for, if you're going to do some advertisements, maybe it's a sign or it's flyers, the equipment that you need to squish your lemons with, the ingredients itself, and then any salaries or commission that that you pay your brother or sister to sit at the booth with, right? And so this is a way of understanding, this is how this money gets made and the value gets delivered to certain customers. Okay. All right. So what I have is a blank canvas for you, and I want each of your teams. I'm going to give you guys about 7 minutes, and I want you to write up thinking about your project as a business opportunity. Start with the value proposition, then the customer, and then fill in the other things. Okay? So I'll give you guys 7 minutes, and then we'll have you briefly present what you guys are doing. Okay? Yeah. Good. So if you take your sheet and you fold it in half this way, what you'll see is on the the right side of this, you'll see this is really the idea of value creation that we started out talking about. And this is the delivery of that value. And so the business model basically puts both of those things together, value creation and value delivery, in a canvas in a way to see how everything interacts. And so I guess what I'll leave you with are these thoughts.